Is reverse osmosis water good for you? I mean, you've likely heard of reverse osmosis water, but is it really good for you? Do you know what it is? Do you know how it's produced? I mean, some people say that it tastes great, it's super pure, and they just love it. Other folks say that it wastes water, it's acidic, it takes away all the nutrients and all the minerals from the water. Who do you believe? Well, in this live stream, I'll be explaining to you everything about reverse osmosis, how it's made, how it works, and so that you can make some great decisions, what's best for your family, and I'm starting right now. Hi, I'm Gary the Water Guy, and I simplify water filtration to help you conquer crappy water for your family. And welcome to my live stream. So like I say, you've heard about reverse osmosis water, but what is it really? And so in this video live stream today, I'm going to be encouraging you to participate and to ask your questions. But ultimately, we're looking for the best water, what's best for our family. And by learning more about reverse osmosis, you can make that decision for your family. Now, there's a lot of myths and a lot of misconceptions about reverse osmosis, and that's really what I'm going to be touching on today. By the end of this video, you'll have some great information about to make some decisions for your family. And now, whether you're watching this live or the replay, there's a ton of information. Of course, the advantages of watching live is that you can submit your questions and I'll answer them live here on YouTube. And when you do put some questions on, I'll flash them up on the screen, just like this comment I made earlier. And won't necessarily be flashing on the screen right as soon as you make the comment. I'll be stopping periodically to go through the comments that have accumulated. So please get your comments ready and ask your questions, and I'd love to deal with them then. Now, the advantage of the replay is that the information that I cover here today, you can refer back to it, and you can watch the replay at any time to remind yourself about some of the comments I made, and also to ask some questions in the comments down below. I do check the comments and answer the questions whenever I can throughout the week, and I'd love to answer yours. And in the description down below, I'll have links to a bunch of the videos and a bunch of the other topics that I'm talking about throughout this presentation. So let's get into it. So did you know that 90% of the diseases are water related and cause 80% of the deaths in developing countries? So we're looking at about 6 million people per year. So the introduction of point of use reverse osmosis systems. So what's a point of use reverse osmosis system? So this is what I'm talking about here. This is a point of use reverse osmosis system. In other words, it's a small system that's installed typically underneath the kitchen sink, or if you have an unfinished area underneath your kitchen area, can be installed in there, and it services just one faucet, typically a faucet that looks kind of like this at the kitchen sink, and giving you super pure reverse osmosis drinking water. Now, those systems are a super inexpensive way of getting, like I say, very pure water for your family. So one thing you'll probably notice if you do some searches on about reverse osmosis, or I guess any other topic on the internet, then you'll find conflicting points of view. And so that's what I'm talking about here today, talking about some of the myths and some of the misconceptions, and believe me, that's hard to say. And if you notice me glancing down, hey, this guy's going by notes. That's right. I always go by notes, and that's because I want to make sure I cover all the important topics that I've planned to discuss with you today, so that you can get the most information out of this hour. Typically, these live streams run about an hour. When we run out of information and we run out of questions, that's when they're over. So what is reverse osmosis anyway? So reverse osmosis is a way of purifying water by taking water and forcing it through a very dense membrane. And the idea is the pure water goes through that membrane, the impurities don't, and they get flushed to the drain as the water is going through the membrane. So what's a membrane look like? Just happen to have one right here. Hopefully this camera will focus if I get it in the middle. There it is. So you can see it looks like a scroll at the end. So what happens is water comes in through the sides, and then it gets channeled out through the membrane. And that's what makes reverse osmosis water. Now, why are there other filters on the reverse osmosis system? These are pre-filters, and that to pre-filter the water so the membrane doesn't get clogged, so the membrane lasts longer, because chlorine isn't very friendly to those with those membranes. So as I say, water's forced through, wastewater is used to flush and to keep that membrane clean, and then it processes. So one of the beauties of the system, of course, is that it just works off water pressure. You don't need a separate electrical outlet. You don't need hydro to run it. It just simply works off water pressure. All right, whoops. And so it's a method of removing the minerals from the water, and like I say, and removing the impurities and running those impurities to the drain. Reverse osmosis uses the wastewater to flush the membrane clean, and the pre and post filters make sure that membrane lasts. Now, if you're not sure about how a reverse osmosis system works, if you want a more in-depth explanation than what I just did right there, then I definitely encourage you to check out my my video, and I've got a link in the description down below. So definitely encourage you to check that out. And here. All right, great. So why even consider reverse osmosis water for your family? Well, let's look at water consumption and supply in its most basic form. Okay, so depending on what your theory is about how life began on this planet, how mankind became on this planet, I think it's pretty safe to realize it was a very basic form, and I believe that mankind was meant to drink water from lakes and rivers, not meant necessarily to drill holes 200 feet into the ground, suck the water out of there and drink that water. So really, I believe that the purest form of water, other than the pollution, of course, would be lake water or would be water from streams. So one of the things I did early on in my career in water filtration was I looked at some of the different water sources and did a comparison. So let's have a look at a little a chart I did here, where I did a did a little comparison here. So you can see here when I'm talking, this is a comparison of well water, treated well water, reverse osmosis water, lake water, and rainwater. So I kind of did this out where I live. And so the well, I'm on a well, and the well water tested at 13 grains per gallon of hardness, which is pretty hard water. Definitely there's some staining going on if you don't have water filtration. The TDS, or total dissolved solids, of my water is 330 parts per million. There's 3.0 parts per million of iron. So yeah, you have some significant staining if you don't have an iron filter and a water softener. And the pH is 7.4. So it's slightly above basic, slightly on the alkaline side. And then after it's treated, of course my home has water filtration equipment in it. So after treating, the hardness is 0. The total dissolved solids is 365. So it's gone up slightly from the raw water, and that's what happens when it goes through a water softener. It goes up slightly. The iron is 0, and the pH is 7.5, or about the same. So, and then we compare to reverse osmosis water. So this is the reverse osmosis water from my home reverse osmosis system here that we're comparing it to. So you can see it's highlighted in yellow, and you can see the hardness from that water is 0. Total dissolved solids is 29, so you can see it's reduced it by over 90%, which is great. Of course, iron is 0 and pH, so pH is slightly lower at 6.5. So it's slightly on the acidic side. Now remember, slightly on the acidic side. Okay, and lake water, so I tested the lake water. So lake water is a hardness of 4, so a little bit of hardness, but not very much. And the TDS is 115 parts per million. So again, very low parts per million. Iron, 0, and pH is 7.5. So it's again slightly on the alkaline side, slightly above 7.0, which is basic. And then I tested rainwater. So again, I think that's a pretty typical source for mankind that could consider drinking would be rainwater, right? So again, hardness of 0. Look at the TDS, 18. So again, super, super low. Iron, 0, and pH of 6.0. What? 6.0? Yep. Rainwater is mildly acidic. So keep that in mind as we go further and start talking about some of the myths and misconceptions as we move ahead. Okay, so pretty telling that comparison. So I think that's something you should definitely keep in mind as we go forward. And now another thing to keep in mind is that well water can be all over the place. Okay, so you can get all different readings for well water, for hardness, for iron, that kind of things, all over the place. Same with municipal water. The hardness can be higher, it can be lower. All right. So So again, let's look at this comparison. So I've been in this industry for almost 20 years, and these are some of the different hardness numbers I've been getting over the years. I've gotten a hardness of 3, and I've gotten a hardness up to 100 grains per gallon. That's 1,700 parts per million of hardness. So you can see huge range in there. Total dissolved solids, again, 30 parts per million up to 4,500 parts per million. Super, super high mineral content. For those folks, iron, 0 parts per million or up to 11 parts per million. And again, that's from well water. pH as low as 5 up to 9. And sodium from 5 parts per million up to over 2,000 parts per million. So you can see huge range of test results I've had over the years. And so when someone talks about, well, well water's the best, well, it depends from which well, right? Because it's a huge range of numbers. So I see we're starting to get some questions. And so I'd like to, you're probably tired of hearing from me by now. So let's hear from you folks. Okay, so let's start here. Okay, Bob. Welcome, Bob. How often should you change the filters? I have a reverse osmosis filter, 5 micron carbon, and a 1 micron pre-filter. Pretty common setup, Bob. And so it really depends on water usage, how many people in your household, etc. General rule of thumb for a family of 2 to 4, I recommend changing the filters once a year, the pre-filters for the membrane. The membrane needs to be changed once your TDS is no longer reducing the TDS by 90%. So again, you use a TDS meter, one of these babies here. Is that going to focus? Yes, it is. Okay, TDS meter to measure the TDS. And by the way, if you're looking at where to get a TDS meter or any of the other items we talk about here today, you can go to our website, waterestore.com in the US or waterestore.ca in Canada. All right, so generally 2 to 4 people once a year. If you got more than 4 people, every 6 months. If you only have one person, you can stretch it out to 1.5 years, but generally that's the rule of thumb. So thanks for that question, Bob. Let's see. Got a comment here from Buki. Not telling me a whole lot. Gary, we. All right. So here's a great question. Oops, sorry. Where'd it go here? Comments. Is it better to feed it soft or hard water? It's always better to feed it soft water. Soft water will make the membrane last longer. It'll keep the membrane from clogging. When we get into the big commercial membranes, reverse osmosis systems for car washes, commercial applications for farming and things like that, almost always we put in a water softener because it'll extend the life of that membrane, and that's really what you want. And typically, if you're a point of use or a household type reverse osmosis system, if you don't have a water softener, and again, it depends on the hardness, right? And how much water you use, but if you don't have a water softener, you might only get 2 to 3 years out of your membrane. If you do have a water softener, 5 to 7 years. And that's because the soft water keeps that membrane from scaling up, right? So that's great. Thank you for your question. And Buki 100, we just recently upgraded our 4-stage reverse osmosis to a 5-stage system. How often do we have to have the filters switched out, and which ones? Great question. So typically once a year, if it's a 5-stage reverse osmosis system, you have to change the 4 filters. So what 4 filters? I'll grab our Hume Water Saver 75 reverse osmosis system, which is also a 5-stage. So 1, 2, 3, and this one at the top here, you need to replace once a year. And again, for the guidelines I gave you earlier. And then the membrane, it depends on testing the TDS of the water to see what's happening. You have to remember, if you have 2,000 TDS in your water, that membrane is not going to last as long as if you have 100 TDS in your water. So that's why it's important to test it. All right, we're getting some more questions here. All right, we've got another one from Carrie here. How can all that wastewater be a good thing when you filter the water through the system? And by the way, thank you for all your great help, Gary. Well, I think we have to put all that wastewater in context, okay? So you have to realize that there's a cost to doing anything, to purifying water, to doing anything. So typically for like the Water Saver 75 reverse osmosis system, for every gallon of water you drink, and again, remember we're talking about gallons of water you drink, not all the water in the whole house. Every gallon of water you drink, there's only a couple of gallons of water that goes to the drain. Now that's a high efficiency reverse osmosis system. Not all systems are like that. Okay, so there really isn't a huge cost. I mean, if you talk about a water softener backwashing, I mean, some water softeners are 70 or 80 gallons of water, especially the older ones that go to the drain. That's wasted water too, right? But we're talking about your drinking water here. And although we can all argue that soft water is important to the household, but I think drinking water is the most important thing to the household. So the cost of a couple gallons of water going to the drain, although we don't want that to happen, obviously, but for what you get out of it, to reduce the mineral content by 90% and a whole lot of other great things that I'll be talking about in just a minute, I think it's worth it. But you have to decide that for yourself and for your family, right? And we have another one. Buki's back again. What are the cons of water-efficient RO systems versus a regular 5-stage system? Okay, the cons of a water-efficient RO system. Well, the cons, of course, is that there's some wasted water, right? That's one of the cons of a reverse osmosis system compared to just having 5 static filters that absorb the dirt, remove the dirt, and moves on. That's one of the biggest cons, and they're more costly. Reverse osmosis 5-stage is more costly than a static type 5-stage system. So a 5-stage water filtration system. So, you know, that's pretty common. So, but I'd say that's the biggest cons, the cost and the wasted water. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind, to reduce the mineral content of your water, okay, you need reverse osmosis. Does a water softener reduce the mineral content? Nope. We just saw that a few seconds ago, right? We saw that a water softener, the mineral content's actually slightly higher after your water goes through a water softener. But to reduce the mineral content, it's only reverse osmosis. There's nothing, oh, you can go distillation. You can boil the water, right? Collect the condensation, and that's distillation. Is that water, does that reduce the TDS? Absolutely. That distilled water is definitely low in mineral content. In fact, it's pretty much zero. Okay, where reverse osmosis isn't zero, it reduces it by 90%. So, but like I say, reverse osmosis is the perfect way for your family to get super pure water at a really, really low cost and a really small expense, I think, when it has to do with that wastewater. And but there's a lot of health benefits to reverse osmosis water. So let's talk about that for a second here. And so reverse osmosis removes common chemical contaminants, things like chloride, copper, chromium, reduces lead and arsenic, fluoride, radium, sulfates, calcium, magnesium, potassium, nitrates, and phosphorus. So there's a lot of reduction going on there. And I've got a bit of a list I'll flash through quickly in just a few minutes so you can have a better idea of what actually is happening there. But more importantly than that, they remove, and you're going to be hearing a lot more about this if you haven't already, PPCPs. So what are PPCPs? Pharmaceuticals and personal care products. So what's been happening for years is that everybody's on some kind of pill or pills or pill regime these days, right? So your body only absorbs so much of those pills. What happens to the part that you don't absorb? Well, we excrete it, right? When we go to the bathroom. Well, all that excreted leftovers from the pills is going to end up somewhere. Guess where it ends up? It ends up in our water supplies. Are the municipalities doing anything to remove that from the water? Nope, they're not at this point. Okay, they're saying the levels aren't high enough to worry about at this point. And as far as they're concerned, they're not. But for me and for my family, I think I am concerned about that. Does reverse osmosis remove that? Absolutely. So again, whether you're on well water or you're getting water from a lake or you're getting water from a municipal supply, if you don't remove the PPCPs, the pharmaceuticals and personal care products, from your family's drinking water, nobody else is. So keep that in mind. Chemicals like chlorine, herbicides, and pesticides are also removed by a point of use reverse osmosis drinking water system. Very important. What about bacteria? Cryptosporidium, Giardia? Reverse osmosis does a great job of removing those too. Now, reverse osmosis isn't meant to continually be removing bacteria from your water, because the bacteria will eventually eat right through that membrane and you'll pass bacteria through. But you can definitely, for short periods of time, you can definitely shine it. If you're on well water system or lake water system, I always recommend you have an ultraviolet disinfection system in addition to your reverse osmosis system. So that should definitely be in place. Either just a small one on the reverse osmosis system itself, just for your drinking water, or a whole house reverse osmosis system. That's what whole house ultraviolet disinfection system. That's what I have in my house for my family. Reverse osmosis is also great at removing viruses. For example, hepatitis A, neurovirus, and rotavirus. I can barely say those words, but I assure you they're there. Reverse osmosis also removes most of the sodium ions that are in your water, whether they're in your water naturally, or if a little bit of sodium ions are introduced into your water during the ion exchange process of your water softener, it's going to get rid of that too, or at least 90% of that. So very, very important to keep that in mind. And so let me just flash through quickly some other things that reverse osmosis removes. So sodium, 85 to 94%. Sulfates, 96 to 98%. So I don't need to read this out to you. You can check this out here and go through the list. Like I say, iron, 94 to 98%, etc. What else we got here? Mercury, 95 to 98%. Selenium, phosphates, lead, 95 to 98%. Those poor folks in Michigan that had all that lead in their water. If they would have had reverse osmosis systems, it would have removed most of that lead. And likely a lot of folks wouldn't have gotten sick. Magnesium, nickel, and again, fluoride. So again, Google ingesting fluoride. Fluoride is really bad for us. Yeah, it's great for topographically putting on your teeth to prevent or to minimize tooth decay and things like that. That's great for that. But ingesting it, absolutely not. And if you want to do some research on that, it's a scary, scary topic. And the problem is fluoride just isn't from dentists using it. No, it's all over the place. It makes processed foods more freezer stable. It's used as an additive in lots of food processing. And the problem is it just keeps building and building and building unless we get rid of it, like I say, for our families with reverse osmosis. And all right, so let's get back into myths. Okay, so the number one myth is reverse osmosis removes all of the minerals. Well, it doesn't remove all of the minerals, right? We saw that earlier. It removes about 90% of the minerals, okay? And so regardless of the mineral, it's going to be removing a significant percentage of that. Now, people say, well, wait a second, if it's removing all these minerals, isn't it removing the minerals that are good for me? Well, like I say, we'll get into that a little bit more in detail, but you get your minerals from your food, and that's where you get your minerals from. The amount of minerals, the amount of good minerals you get from your drinking water is so small, you'll see. Just a second, we'll get to that. Myth number 2 is reverse osmosis removes healthy minerals. Well, okay. It does. We can't pick and choose what minerals it's removing. Like I say, it removes a certain percentage of all the minerals. But what you'll find is, like I say, from your foods, that's where you get the minerals that are beneficial for you. The other thing to keep in mind too, what minerals are beneficial for you might be calcium, might be phosphorus or phosphates. Things that might not be beneficial for me. You might be on a sodium reduced diet. I might not be on a sodium reduced diet. Those kinds of things. So again, our doctors can guide us what minerals are good for us, and we can tailor the foods we eat to the minerals that we should have in our diets. And that's really what's important. Also, you're going to find very, very soon that the amount of minerals that's actually in water is a pretty small amount. Okay, let's talk about calcium. So lots of folks say, oh, I need more calcium in my diet and that kind of thing. Well, one thing to realize is the calcium concentration of water varies between 1 and 135 milligrams per liter across the USA and Canada. So it depends where you are, how much calcium you're going to get. But the average is about 22 milligrams per liter. So the recommended daily intake of calcium for our most folks is 1,000 milligrams, okay? So there's only 22 milligrams in every liter of water, okay? But the daily intake that they're recommending is 1,000 milligrams. So as you can see, that in 1.7 liters of water, there's only 48 milligrams, which is only 5% of your total recommended daily intake of calcium. So you'd have to drink an awful lot of water, and that's where the term is, you have to drink a bath load of water to get enough calcium to get the right water in your system, and that's absolutely right. So where do you get that calcium? Well, that's like orange juice or 2% milk has 1,200 milligrams of calcium per liter, or 55 times as much calcium as the same amount of water. So if you're looking for calcium in your diet, that's what you do. Drink milk or drink orange juice. So 1 glass of orange juice has the same amount of minerals as 30 gallons of water. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, we got some more questions coming in here, some more comments, and so let's move on to that. Buki 100. I hope I'm saying that right. Besides replacing the filters, any other maintenance you need to do an RO system? Reinflate the bladder if it's low, or whoops. Or don't touch it and call a service tech. Well, it depends. It depends on you. It depends on how hands-on you are. I mentioned you do have to replace the filters on an ongoing basis. That's right. You do have to check the TDS of the water to see if the membrane requires replacement or not. And yeah, typically after about every 5 or 6 years, the bladder does lose its pre-charge and that has to be recharged. Can you do it yourself? Absolutely. I have YouTube videos that show you how to do it. And I'd say it's one of the simpler processes to maintain a reverse osmosis system if you do it step by step and if you have some guidance from someone like myself. So you can definitely do it yourself. Call a service tech. Yeah, that's an option. If you're not handy or you don't have the time, or you can spend your time better doing something else than calling a service tech, yeah, you can definitely call a service tech. Whether you're calling a service tech or doing it yourself, I always recommend check out my videos first, because if you're calling a service tech, just spend the 3 or 4 minutes to watch one of my videos on reverse osmosis maintenance, and you'll have a pretty good idea of what the guy should be doing when he comes out to your place, right? And you'll have some good knowledge. And when you ask the guy some knowledgeable questions, or lady, ask them some knowledgeable questions, they'll be a little more on their toes. I can assure you of that. But thanks for your question. All right. Another great question here from Buki 100, and he says, whoops, did that go? There it is. How long does an RO system last? Would you ever need to replace the entire unit due to age? And again, it's the same kind of thing. How long does a car last? So if you buy an inexpensive car, you can't expect it to last as long as a better built, higher quality car, right? It's the same thing with the reverse osmosis system. I've seen reverse osmosis systems last well over 20 years. And they were well designed, they were well built, and that kind of thing. I see other ones, especially some of the ones on the market these days, and I hate to say it, but they're the Chinese and the Korean built ones, that the build quality is so poor, you're going to have problems after just a few years. You're going to have leaking fittings, you're going to have other problems with them not sealing properly, and and believe me, for those Chinese or Korean ones, trying to get replacement parts or trying to get O-rings or something like that for them is going to be a huge battle. The other thing I find is the ones that have the quick connect removable filters on the bottom. You know, the sales pitch is always, oh, you can change the filters yourself. You just a quarter turn, remove them, put them back on. I find with those ones, the manifolds start to leak after only a few years. And once the manifold leaks, guess what? You can't buy a new manifold, so now you got to replace the whole system. So going with a system like I say, are the Water Saver 75 or this Gold Line 50 reverse osmosis system here. They're made in USA. They use quality John Guest fittings on them. They last a long time, and you're making a good investment with those ones, and so you can definitely do that. Let's see what else we have here. Most suggested filter changes are given in a time frame, change once a year. We are 2 seniors who use only a few gallons of water today. How many gallons between filter changes? Yeah, and you're right. It would be great if the reverse osmosis systems had meters on them. It would also be great if the reverse osmosis systems had that you could calibrate it with how much chlorine you have coming into your system, or you have no chlorine coming into your system. But the problem is you're adding a lot of complexity there. And the more complexity you add, the more it's going to cost initially, and the more the bells and whistles are always what breaks down first. That's what I find. So yeah, that's a thing. But if it's only 2 seniors, you use very little water, I definitely suggest once a year. If you want to stretch it to a year and a half, that's up to you, okay? But don't stretch it longer than that. It's preventative maintenance. It's the same with your car. I mean, they say in Canada, they used to say 5,000 kilometers. Now in newer cars, they say 10,000 kilometers. Multiply that 0.6 if you're in the US to get miles. But the thing is, these days, especially with COVID-19 being around for the last year, a lot of folks aren't driving their cars. So what's happened is the oil needs to be changed a lot sooner than once a year or once every 18 months. It's preventative maintenance. So that's preventative maintenance for your reverse osmosis system, changing those filters, and just like you do preventative maintenance on your car by changing the oil, right? So it's a similar kind of scenario. But great question, thank you. And thanks, Gary. You always provide great information. Well, thanks. I really appreciate comments like that, and it really makes it worthwhile because I really enjoy doing these things. But if nobody's watching, there's no use doing them, right? So another great question here. I hope it's going to be great from Buki100. Thank you, Gary, for your expertise. We have recently purchased a CLAC WS1 and the recommended 5-stage in your video you made and are thrilled with the ease and results they provide. Well, thank you very much. And that's what I say. I spend a lot of time talking about products that are good for everybody, and like I say, we have our own brand, and I'll do a little shameless commercial here, and our brand is Hume Water Filtration, okay? And the Hume Water Filtration are those products. We use the CLAC valves, we use the Water Saver 75 reverse osmosis systems, and they're not the most expensive on the market. They don't have all the bells and whistles. They're just a great product that gives great service and is going to last a long time. And I find that's what most people are looking for, right? And they're not really looking for those bells and the whistles. So that's what happens. Okay. So all right, let's continue on with the program here. So we're still on myth number 2, and there's a bunch more coming. So bear with it. When it comes to recommended daily intake of magnesium, some other people say, hey, magnesium, I want magnesium, but hey, you say reverse osmosis removes it, right? Well, so the daily intake that's recommended is 400 milligrams. Again, assuming you ingest the recommended 1.7 liters of water, you would only get 17 milligrams from your water. That's it, of magnesium. That's it. So where do you get magnesium? Well, ask your doctor. He's going to tell you, or she is going to tell you, get it from cashews, sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, spinach, almonds, and I'm sure he'll have a whole bunch of other great places to get it from. Not from your water. There's hardly anything in your water. Let's talk about something else. Potassium. I met some folks the other day. They say, well, we need more potassium in our diet, and the doctor's concerned. Their doctor was concerned about taking the minerals out of your water with reverse osmosis. Well, how much potassium is in water? None. Absolutely none. So the daily intake, recommended intake for potassium is 4,700 milligrams. And again, you're going to get nothing from your water. So where do you go from that? Well, most folks know bananas, but also oranges, cantaloupes, honeydews, apricots, grapefruits, dried fruits, cooked spinach, potatoes, and peas. So that's some of that. Sodium. So we do need some sodium in our diet. I know a lot of folks are on sodium reduced diets because, some of us, or for whatever reason, have ended up with high sodium. But there is a certain amount of sodium you need in your diet. Generally speaking, that's not a concern because, again, people add sodium to their foods. Processed foods include a lot of sodium. Again, sodium makes foods freezer stable. So there's a lot of sodium in frozen foods that have been previously frozen, and also in prepared foods. So again, easy to control. Okay, myth number 3, reverse osmosis wastewater. So we touched on that a little bit earlier. And so yeah, there is some water being wasted. But again, if you look at the different kind of reverse osmosis system. So I did a comparison a while ago. I compared Amazon's best-selling reverse osmosis system. Can't remember the name brand, but you can check out the video. And I compared it to our Water Saver 75. And some of the reverse osmosis systems out there, for every gallon of water you drink, there's 9 gallons of water that goes to the drain. Well, 9 gallons of water going to the drain is an awful lot of water, especially when you compare it to our Water Saver 75. So you can definitely control that. And by the way, I definitely encourage you, if you subscribe to this YouTube channel, that way you'll be notified about the new videos that come up. I just flashed a little notification on the screen there, bottom right hand corner. Just click the subscribe button, and that would be great. But let's look at some other things that waste water. Okay, so let's look at some other things. So for example, wine. So how many gallons of water does it take to make 1 gallon of wine? Okay, 960 gallons. Yep, that's how much it takes. That's the rainwater that to grow the grapes, to do the processing, etc. 960 gallons to make 1 gallon of wine. Okay, yeah, but some people say, hey, I drink beer. Don't worry about it. I drink. Well, so it takes 160 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of beer. Oh, yeah. So is that wasting water? Well, it depends on your frame of reference, right? Soda, 132 gallons to make 1 2-liter bottle of soda, or as we call it in Canada, pop. So you can see, if you do some research on this, you'd be amazed at how much water is used to manufacture things or to produce things. So it's amazing. When you put the context of 2 or 2.5 gallons of water for every gallon of water you drink with the Water Saver 75 reverse osmosis to give you that super pure water for your family, I definitely think it's worth it. Reverse osmosis water is too acidic. That's another one we hear. Well, RO water has a pH of about 6 or 6.5, in and around there. Your stomach has a pH of 1.5 to 3.5. So put that in context. So when you drink some water that's a pH of 6 compared to a water of pH of 7, okay, how much difference is that going to make to your stomach that's at 1.5 or 3.5? Absolutely none, because that's what your stomach is designed to deal with, okay? And remember, we looked earlier and we talked about lake water and we talked about rainwater. Again, pH is relatively low, okay? So your stomach is so much more acidic than that. But again, when you put in context of what reverse osmosis does for you, getting rid of the fluoride and potentially lead and so much of the other stuff, it pales in comparison, that little bit of a lower pH of reverse osmosis water. Bottled water is better than reverse osmosis water. Well, what bottled water are you talking about? When my wife and I go on vacation, other years, not this year, go on vacation, if we go to the Caribbean and we check into a resort, all the water we're given there is bottled water, and it's all RO water, okay? Here, when we travel in Canada and we stop and we're on the highway and we stop to get gas and we want to get a bottle of water, we look at the bottle of water. Typically, the lower cost ones are spring water. The higher cost ones are Dasani or Aquafina reverse osmosis water, okay? So depends where you get that bottled water. I mean, you have to realize a lot of the bottled water, the spring water you get out there, some of it is 550 parts per million of mineral content. It says right on the label, 550 parts per million. Well, considering the drinking water standard is 500 or less, that's a really big number for them to have to put onto that label. So, like I say, don't lump all bottled water in together, okay? Read the label, see what it says. If it's reverse osmosis water and you like reverse osmosis, pay that little bit extra as opposed to spring water, okay? Myth number 6, alkaline water is better than RO water. So this is another one of those kind of fads that's come out there. Alkaline water is better. Why? Because the pH is better. And I set out on a quest over the last couple of weeks getting ready for this, and I wanted to find out, where's the proof? Where does it say? Who did the research? And so I checked all over the place. The best quote I found about this whole topic was from the Mayo Clinic. And what did they say? It says, research suggests that alkaline water is unlikely to significantly change blood pH. Some studies suggest that alkaline water might help slow bone loss, but it's unclear if the benefit is maintained over long term. Some say that alkaline water can prevent disease, such as cancer and heart disease. However, there's little credible evidence to support such claim. In other words, some claims being made out there. Where's the proof, guys? Where's the proof? Nowhere to be found. So again, we talked a little bit earlier about reverse osmosis water being too acidic. and I'll get to your questions. I see there's more rolling in here, but I'll get to them very shortly. So myth number 7, reverse osmosis water is too acidic. Compared to what? Okay, so gastric juice, we talked about that in your stomach, right? 1.2. Soft drinks, 3.0. Wine and beer, 4.0. What? Wine and beer is 4.0? It's that acidic? Absolutely. Human saliva, 6.4. Baking soda, 8.3. So when some people are out there and they're saying that alkaline water is better for you, okay, it really isn't. There's nothing to support that. Our bodies look after that. You don't need RO, myth number 8, you don't need RO water. Tap water is safe. Well, some folks have found out that hasn't been the case. I mean, you know, highly publicized things like Flint, Michigan hasn't worked out too well for those folks. Years ago in Canada, we had Walkerton, where lots of folks became sick. Folks died from tainted water, bad water. And reverse osmosis removes lead. Reverse osmosis also gives you a second barrier against bacteria. In both of those highly publicized cases, that's Flint, Michigan and Walkerton, Ontario, reverse osmosis system, the folks that would have that would have prevented that for their families. So definitely keep that in mind. Okay, let's go to some questions here. Sorry, carrying on here. Talked about that. Did I send this one up already? Maybe I just liked it so much I wanted to send it up again. Thanks a lot for your comment. I appreciate that. And get that up there. Oops. All right. Great. Another comment here from James. Good show, thanks. Well, thanks a lot, James. I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate all of you participating in these when I do these live streams. Believe me, they take a lot of work to put on, and it's a lot of thinking to come up with the topics. And by the way, I'd really encourage you to add to the comments down below if you'd like to suggest some topics for the future. I'm definitely open to suggestions, always looking for ideas. I do a live stream once a month, and of course videos once a week. So let's carry on. So another myth, number 9, RO water will leach the minerals from your body. Well, again, one of those things that someone's saying, but there's no research to support this. RO pulling minerals out of your body is totally unsubstantiated. Since rainwater and surface water is also low in mineral content, do you think our anticipated water source would have these characteristics? But I'll give you an example. So the city of Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada, their municipal drinking water converts to a TDS range of approximately 8 to 20 milligrams per liter, or 8 to 20 parts per million, which is the same as most point-of-use reverse osmosis systems. We would certainly know if there were health effects in that city from that low mineral content, because there haven't been any. So again, the RO water leaching minerals out of your body is total bunk. The U.S. Army uses expeditionary or portable reverse osmosis systems to provide low TDS safe water for its field personnel. They do not consider low TDS water to be a problem and have no minimum standards. The U.S. EPA conducted a project in San Isidro, sorry, I can't, it's not a name I hear often, New Mexico, in which the drinking water TDS was reduced from 800 parts per million down to a range of 40 to 7 parts per million. Again, no ill health effects were observed during the one-year test. Many hundreds of thousands of RO drinking water appliances have been sold residentially over 40 years without any reported ill health effects from consumption of this type of water. Okay, so again, look at your diet, look at how what kind of foods you're consuming, and get your minerals from your diet. Myth number 10, reverse osmosis systems require expensive maintenance. Well, I don't know about expensive. Like I say, everything requires maintenance. But again, we're talking about your drinking water for your family here. I mean, this is a pretty important topic here. We're not talking about maintaining a motorcycle or something like that. You know, I know they're more fun, but that kind of thing. How much costs to maintain a reverse osmosis system? Well, our water saver 75. I'll give you an example. Currently, the 4 replacement filters are around $60. If you replace them once a year. And again, I've got YouTube videos that show you how, so you can easily do it yourself. The membrane's a little bit over $100, but again, to give you some ideas, and all of those prices are free shipping in Canada, or free shipping in the US if that's where you're located, and order from our US website. And by the way, if you're talking about our websites, waterestore.com is in United States, waterestore.ca is in Canada. We have two separate websites. So and again, I have YouTube videos that show you how to do the reverse osmosis filter changes. Super easy. I've got several of them. I got sort of a generic one. This is a generic one that I released a few weeks ago or a couple months ago. I've got the in the description down below. I've got a link to that, and so, you know, you can definitely check that out. But I also have specific ones for the Water Saver 75 or the Gold Line 50 reverse osmosis system. I do have specific videos on exactly those systems. And so if you have one of those, you're definitely in good shape. So myth number 11, reverse osmosis systems dispense water slowly. So again, we talked earlier about you have a dedicated reverse osmosis faucet, something like this at the kitchen sink. Can we zoom in on that? Probably just too busy zooming in on my face. Yep, sorry about that. Reverse osmosis faucet. So years ago, some of the systems, yeah, they were quite slow. But if you use, again, my favorite, the Water Saver 75, which is what's in my house, we did a YouTube video. I think I've got it here. Where is it here? Yep. So I did a YouTube video where my wife and I did a little video where we actually timed how long it took to fill a glass. And I'm talking a big glass, okay? This glass here. So it's a 12-ounce glass, okay? That's what we filled. And I timed how long it took it. And watch the video. Again, I've got a link in the description down below. I think it was something like 4.5 or 5 seconds. So it's fast. In fact, the water was going in there so quickly that it was actually gushing out. So like I say, the newer ones are a lot faster than the older ones. And if you want to hot rod your system or make your system work better or have the water come out more quickly, again, I've got a great YouTube video for that. If I haven't put it in the description down below, put it in the comments and I'll definitely add a link to that video. And all right, let's go to some more questions. I see there's some more coming in. Thank you very much for your questions. I do really appreciate them. And Buki 100 is back again here. Are some people apprehensive to install an RO system because it might leak and flood their kitchen? Yeah, there might be some people that are apprehensive about that. There is such a device called a leak stop, and we sell that again on our website. If you'd like a link to that, I'll put it in the description down below. Just add it to the comments. And it's a small device that goes on the floor in the kitchen. And whenever we install one in a finished area, like in a kitchen, we always install a leak stop, and it goes on the floor, and it has a small tablet in there. And then when that tablet gets wet, and I don't mean wet by much, I mean wet by a couple drops, it swells up quite quickly, and it shuts off the water flow to the reverse osmosis system. So you might get a little bit of water leaking out, but it definitely minimizes any damage caused by a water leak. So, you know, in a lot of cases, reverse osmosis can be put in a basement or in a utility room or somewhere like that. And so you don't have to worry about a leak as much in those areas. I mean, it's not that common for there to be a leak from reverse osmosis. Can it happen? Yeah, it can happen, but it's very, very uncommon. And that's why I always encourage you to get a good reverse osmosis system, not the cheapest one out there. And because the good ones use the better John Guest fittings, which are made in England, and they're much higher quality fitting. And believe me, you know, I'm in people's homes every single day. My installers installing this equipment every single day. We do service work, etc. So we know what lasts and we know what doesn't. And like I say, a quality system definitely minimizes your chances of ever having a leak. But great question, thank you. And James, I hooked mine through the refrigerator water dispenser. No leaks. Less common when copper was replaced by the PEX type lines. Less common, sorry, what was that? Oop, wrong one. Less common when copper was replaced by the PEX type lines. Yeah, so again, Years ago, I think what James is referring to is there used to be copper lines going to the fridge. Now, generally speaking, we're putting plastic lines to the fridge, which is much more compatible with reverse osmosis water anyway. But the reverse osmosis fittings, they definitely work really well. I don't suggest, it's like shark bites, right? You see these commercial for shark bites, oh, they're the greatest thing, they're the greatest thing. I'm not a huge fan of shark bites, but whatever you do with a shark bite or with John Guest or any other kind of quick connect fittings, don't hook it up and disconnect it and hook it up and disconnect it. I really think that that compromises it and will compromise it over time. I suggest you connect and disconnect as infrequently as possible, and that will definitely make it work. But hooking it up to the fridge absolutely is the way to go. When you have those nice clear ice cubes that are made with reverse osmosis water, and then when those ice cubes melt, you don't have that white fuzzy stuff at the bottom of your glass, you'll be sold on the reverse osmosis. Believe me, it really makes a huge difference for your family. And is there a big difference between RO and air injection for iron? Great question, Curtis. Thank you for that. So air injection is for an iron filter. And again, I got some great videos on that. If you're looking for a link, just put it in the comments below and I'll give you that. But air injection goes into a tank, okay? As the water goes through, it's sprayed through, oxidizes the iron out of the water, and then it picks it up, okay? And that's a great whole house solution. If you reverse osmosis has some pre-treatment requirements. So if you're looking at going with a whole house reverse osmosis system, and you have iron in your water, and you have hard water, and you have, tannins or other stuff in your water, okay, you have to deal with that first, okay? So if you have more than 0.3 parts per million of iron in your water, you have to have an iron filter to get rid of that before the reverse osmosis system. So although reverse osmosis will get rid of the iron, okay, it doesn't do the heavy lifting, I guess is what I'm saying. It would clog up pretty quickly. Same with hard water, okay? If you have hard water, yeah, it'll make the water soft after the reverse osmosis system, but it's not going to do the heavy lifting. It's going to finish off the process, and that's what it's for. But thanks for that question. It's really important that we kind of verify things by scale, if you like, but any small amounts of that iron that might get through your iron filter or might get through your water softener, the reverse osmosis will definitely pick that up, and that's where it works great. But great question. Thank you for that. And Buki, thank you. Have a great evening and cheers from Scottsdale, Arizona. Nice area, Scottsdale, Arizona. I was there a while ago, Barrett-Jackson auction. Some years ago, we were there for the January auction. Great to see. I don't know if you're a car guy or not. Great to see. I have a friend that lives in Tucson, so we popped down there. Great area. Thanks a lot for your comments. I really appreciate it. Whoops. And what's happened here? Okay, another question, continue question from Curtis. What's the difference between RO and air injection for iron with ozone? So I spoke a little bit about in my iron, how to remove iron from your water video about ozone. I'm not a huge fan of ozone. At one time I was a dealer for a very big and kind of up and coming ozone system, and they had made all kinds of claims. Unfortunately, the system didn't live up to those claims, so there was no way I could continue to sell that system. Ozone does work well. The problem with ozone is the ozone generators are expensive. They don't last very long. They need to be replaced. That kind of thing. And I found with air you can do, at least in the context of the customers that I help, or the people families that I help with their water, I found that air I can do totally satisfy them without having to go to ozone. And again, it's one of those bells and whistles that if we can avoid it, let's do that, right? And that's the thing with ozone. So, all right, let me continue on. We're getting pretty close to the end, so if you do have some questions, it's kind of now or never. Well, it's not now or never. I mean, during the live stream, it would be now or never. After the live stream's done, you can always add it to the comments, and I'll definitely answer those. And so I asked earlier, is reverse osmosis water safe to drink? That's the name of this live stream, and absolutely yes. Reverse osmosis is not only safe to drink, it's extremely healthy for your family. You need to ask yourself, would you rather drink water with potential contaminants like lead, bacteria, chromium-6, arsenic, nitrates, chloramines, pharmaceuticals and personal care products, trihalomethanes. What are trihalomethanes? That's when chlorine combines with organics in your water, you get trihalomethanes. And definitely something you want to avoid. And again, reverse osmosis gets rid of that. So water's not your major source of minerals. The foods you eat are. And would you prefer to drink super pure, great tasting reverse osmosis water, and then choose to eat the right foods to get the minerals that you need? And what should you be concerned about? Well, we talked about all the minerals in that in your water, and don't forget when. If you haven't gotten away from the single serving bottles, please do. You know, the effect on the environment and all the other negatives of those is huge out there. And I was talking about Scottsdale, and Buki answered, "Did you buy a car?" No, I did not buy a car at Barrett Jackson. But thanks for asking. No, my wife wouldn't let me. Anyway, so what do the pros drink? So I did a little bit of research on that too, again, preparing for this evening, and I found that many celebrity doctors, what's celebrity doctors? Well, you know, the ones on TV, Dr. Oz and some of the other guys out there, but also a lot of the YouTube doctors are out there. When they did a thing on drinking water, they drink reverse osmosis, and yeah, they may supplement it with some drops of some sort, or their diet, or things like that. But it seemed like all the celebrity doctors are on reverse osmosis water. And so I think that's something to definitely keep in mind. What do I use? I'm not a celebrity, of course, but I am a pro in the water filtration industry, and my family drinks reverse osmosis water. Thanks for watching. I do new videos every Saturday, except when I have a live stream on the previous Thursday, like this week. So this week we won't have I'll have a new video this Saturday because I'll be promoting this video. And I definitely encourage you to have your friends and family watch this video if they're interested in this kind of thing. Upcoming live streams are promoted through our Facebook Water eStore account, and on Instagram, and also on the community tab of Gary the Water Guy YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.